World War I and II shaped the modern world, but what if I told you the biggest headlines barely scratch the surface? Today, we're uncovering the hidden history of the world wars, covert missions, lost inventions, secret alliances, and unsung heroes who changed history behind the scenes. This is the side of the world wars they never taught you in school. Let's dive into the untold stories that defined our past. World War I wasn't just fought with rifles, it was a war of intelligence and deception. Did you know the British MI6 was born during WWII, running spies across Europe in a game of deadly espionage? Or that the trenches were rumored to be haunted? Soldiers often reported phantom footsteps, strange lights, and whispers in the mud, what we now call war trauma, once believed to be actual ghosts. And while Europe burned, a hidden genocide unfolded. The Armenian genocide claimed 1.5 million lives under the cover of global chaos, still unrecognized by some countries to this day. World War I, an international conflict that in 1914–18 embroiled most of the nations of Europe along with Russia, the United States, the Middle East, and other regions. The war pitted the Central Powers, mainly Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey, against the Allies, mainly France, Great Britain, Russia, Italy, Japan, and from 1917 the United States. It ended with the defeat of the Central Powers. The war was virtually unprecedented in the slaughter, carnage, and destruction it caused. World War I was one of the great watersheds of 20th century geopolitical history. It led to the fall of four great imperial dynasties in Germany, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey, resulted in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, and, in its destabilization of European society, laid the groundwork for World War II. Triple Entente, Allies by France, Russia, Britain, later joined by Italy, Japan, US, and others. Triple Alliance, Central Powers, Pintais, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy. Italy later switched sides. Ottoman Empire. The causes of World War I included the rise of Germany and decline of the Ottoman Empire, which disturbed the long-standing balance of power in Europe, and rising economic competition between nations driven by industrialization and imperialism. Growing tensions between the great powers and in the Balkans reached a breaking point on 28 June 1914, when Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb, assassinated the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and declared war on 28 July. After Russia mobilized in Serbia's defense, Germany declared war on Russia and France, who had an alliance. The United Kingdom entered after Germany invaded Belgium, and the Ottomans joined the Central Powers in November. Germany's strategy in 1914 was to quickly defeat France, then transfer its forces to the east, but its advance was halted in September, and by the end of the year, the Western Front consisted of a near-continuous line of trenches from the English Channel to Switzerland. The Eastern Front was more dynamic, but neither side gained a decisive advantage despite costly offensives. Italy, Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, and others joined in from 1915 onward. Major battles, including at Verdun, the Somme, and Passchendaele, failed to break the stalemate on the Western Front. In April 1917, the United States joined the Allies after Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare against Atlantic shipping. Later that year, the Bolsheviks seized power in Russia in the October Revolution. Soviet Russia signed an armistice with the Central Powers in December, followed by a separate peace in March 1918. That month, Germany launched a spring offensive in the West, which despite initial successes left the German army exhausted and demoralized. The Allied 100 Days Offensive beginning in August 1918 caused a collapse of the German front line. Following the Vardar Offensive, Bulgaria signed an armistice in late September. By early November, the Ottoman Empire and Austria-Hungary had each signed armistices with the Allies, leaving Germany isolated. Facing a revolution at home, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated on 9 November, and the war ended with the armistice of 11 November 1918. New technologies transformed combat, including tanks, airplanes, submarines, U-boats, and chemical weapons, making WWII the first truly industrialized war. At sea, Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare, which sank neutral ships like the Lusitania, 1915, helped bring the United States into the war in 1917, shifting the balance in favor of the Allies. The war ended when an exhausted Germany, facing economic collapse and revolution at home, signed the Armistice of November 11, 1918. The subsequent Treaty of Versailles, 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany. including massive reparations, territorial losses, and military restrictions, fueling resentment that later contributed to World War II. WWII caused the fall of 4 empires, German, Russian, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman, redrew national borders, and led to the creation of new nations like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. It also introduced concepts of total war, where entire societies were mobilized for conflict and left a devastating human toll. Over 20 million dead, military and civilian, and 21 million wounded. The war's aftermath set the stage for future conflicts, revolutions like the Russian Revolution, and the rise of new political ideologies, including fascism and communism, shaping the 20th century in profound ways. WWII wasn't just military, it was mystical. Hitler and his inner circle were obsessed with occultism and ancient relics, believing artifacts like the Spear of Destiny could bring supernatural power. On the Allied side, deception won battles. Operation Fortitude used inflatable tanks and fake radio chatter to convince the Nazis that D-Day would land in Calais, not Normandy. It worked brilliantly. And let's not forget the resistance fighters, teachers, housewives, bakers, who sabotaged trains, assassinated officers, and passed messages in books and bread loaves. World War II, or the Second World War, 1st September 1939 to September 1945, was a global conflict between two coalitions, the Allies and the Axis powers. Nearly all of the world's countries participated, with many nations mobilizing all resources in pursuit of total war. Tanks and aircraft played major roles, enabling the strategic bombing of cities and delivery of the first and only nuclear weapons ever used in war. World War II was the deadliest conflict in history, resulting in 70 to 85 million deaths, more than half of which were civilians. Millions died in genocides, including the Holocaust, and by massacres, starvation, and disease. After the Allied victory, Germany, Austria, Japan, and Korea were occupied, and German and Japanese leaders were tried for war crimes. The causes of World War II included unresolved tensions in the aftermath of World War I and the rises of fascism in Europe and militarism in Japan. Key events preceding the war included Japan's invasion of Manchuria in 1931, the Spanish Civil War, the outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937, and Germany's annexations of Austria and the Sudetenland. World War II is generally considered to have begun on 1st September 1939, when Nazi Germany, under Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland, after which the United Kingdom and France declared war on Germany. Poland was divided between Germany and the Soviet Union under the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. In 1940, the Soviets annexed the Baltic states and parts of Finland and Romania. After the fall of France in June 1940, the war continued mainly between Germany and the British Empire, with fighting in the Balkans, Mediterranean, and Middle East, the aerial battle of Britain and the Blitz, and naval battle of the Atlantic. Through campaigns and treaties, Germany gained control of much of continental Europe and formed the Axis alliance with Italy, Japan, and other countries. In June 1941, Germany led an invasion of the Soviet Union, opening the Eastern Front and initially making large territorial gains. In December 1941, Japan attacked American and British territories in Asia and the Pacific, including at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, leading the United States to enter the war against Japan and Germany. Japan conquered much of coastal China and Southeast Asia, but its advances in the Pacific were halted in June 1942 at the Battle of Midway. In late 1942, Axis forces were defeated in North Africa and at Stalingrad in the Soviet Union. And in 1943, their continued defeats on the Eastern Front, an Allied invasion of Italy, and Allied offensives in the Pacific forced them into retreat on all fronts. In 1944, the Western Allies invaded France at Normandy, as the Soviet Union recaptured its pre-war territory and the US crippled Japan's navy and captured key Pacific islands. The war in Europe concluded with the liberation of German-occupied territories, invasions of Germany by the Western Allies and the Soviet Union, which culminated in the fall of Berlin to Soviet troops, and Germany's unconditional surrender on 8 May 1945. On 6 and 9 August, the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Faced with an imminent Allied invasion, the prospect of further atomic bombings, and a Soviet declaration of war and invasion of Manchuria, Japan announced its unconditional surrender on 15 August and signed a surrender document on 2 September 1945. World War II transformed the political, economic, and social structures of the world and established the foundation of international relations for the rest of the 20th century and into the 21st century.